What the Indiana Pacers were able to do last season was beyond extraordinary, especially considering the fashion in which they did it. Numerous heart-stopping, impossible come-from-behind playoff wins against the best of the best in the Eastern Conference, and obviously against one of the greatest teams of all time in their 7-game NBA Finals battle with the OKC Thunder. Unfortunately, the Pacers will be missing their key cog Tyrese Halliburton for likely the entire season, further opening up the door for another upstart Eastern Conference contender to mark their territory amongst a decidedly weak grouping of teams. As a result, I could see several more under-the-radar teams in the East making a comparable run and making a run all the way to the NBA Finals in 26. Do I believe any of these teams will complete this goal in the same exact game-breaking fashion the Pacers did? Absolutely not, though it would make for incredible TV. What I do believe is that these three teams that I've picked will have top-end talent and overall firepower to remain unsuspecting throughout the regular season, but then they'll completely warp everyone's beliefs come playoff time. These are my three Eastern Conference teams that I think will have a shot at recreating the Pacers' unimaginable NBA Finals run this season, and if you disagree, let me know about it. Alright, before we get into everything, hello, my name is Dean Simon, and I love NBA basketball. I'll be covering all 30 teams throughout the 2025-26 season right here, and the season's right around the corner, so if that sounds like something you'd be interested in and something that you'd like to see, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, leave a like on the video, and give me your thoughts in the comments down below. Oh, also forgot, I'd like to thank our sponsor for this video, No One. Oh no, wait, Ernie Johnson's gonna send me a cease and desist for that, isn't he? Alright, well, anyways, on with the video. First up is the Detroit Pistons, and of any of the teams that I have on this short list, I think the Detroit Pistons have the best chance of recreating the Pacers' run for fairly obvious reasons. The Pistons were able to end a 17-year postseason win drought in the 2025 playoffs in the first round against the Knicks on the back of Cade Cunningham, their lone All-Star, an All-NBA third-team representative, and the NBA's seventh-place finisher in MVP voting. For lack of a more intelligent-sounding claim that I could offer here, Cade went nuts. 26.1 points, 9.1 assists, 6.1 rebounds, 47, 36, 85 splits over 70 games, and he led the Pistons to a 44-38 record, the East 6th seed, and their first playoff berth since 2019, and as was stated before, their first playoff win since 2008. Now, this segment isn't all about Cade, and it's for good reason, because the Pistons might have one of the more complete rosters in the NBA next year, despite losing Tim Hardaway Jr. to the Nuggets, Dennis Schroeder to the Kings, and Malik Beasley to a federal gambling probe that likely cost him upwards of $40 million. Losing Beasley, Losing Beasley is, of course, the biggest blow, as he inserted himself as one of the league's best three-point shooters last season, and he finished as the runner-up for 6th Man of the Year honors. But the work that the Pistons were able to do in the offseason already did plenty to counteract these losses, and in the place of Beasley, the Pistons were only able to fill that spot with ex-Miami Heat staple Duncan Robinson, who has NBA Finals experience and became the greatest outside shot maker in Miami Heat franchise history through the first 7 years of his career. He's a career 39.7% shooter, and he's going to star off the bench alongside possibly the most underrated offseason addition for any team in the league, Caris LeVert, who is coming off the most efficient season of his career after splitting time with the Cavs and Hawks last season. We should factor in that Detroit will get a third season out of Asar Thompson, who posted an outrageous 2.5 defensive box plus minus last season. That's pretty ridiculous, and he's a guy to watch for a sneaky defensive player of the year run. We should also be taking into account Detroit's resident double-double machine, Jalen Duren, as he turned in another impressive season at 21 years old while developing immensely on the defensive end. Most of all, though, we should be taking into account that Jaden Ivey will retake the court for the Pistons after just 30 games and an ugly left fibula fracture the first day of the 2025 calendar year. It was unfortunate, of course, because, as I like to say, Jaden Ivey was truly beginning to get it with regard to his place within the Pistons offense. Aside from his wildly impressive 17.6 points, 4 assists, and 40.9% shooting clip from 3, Ivey looked leagues more composed and patient last season, and he was always making the conscious decision to not just go full speed ahead at all times like he would a couple years ago. Instead, he was able to pick his spots, and when he would more effectively leverage his athleticism when attacking the rim, and he began to pick up plenty of valuable skills that a lot of veterans use on the daily that will keep him in the league for a long time. One example is that Ivey developed heavily as a pick-and-roll ball handler, and he was able to do this by putting his defenders in jail, using his off-arm to create separation, and he used his body a lot to fend off would-be shot blockers in the lane. His development as more of a ball-dominant option was awesome to see, but his three-point shooting might be of the utmost importance to the Pistons next year. Ivey was excellent both off the dribble and off the catch last year, and we saw just how deadly he could be when mixing the threat of his uber athleticism plus the shot making. He flat out left defenders clueless as to how to slow him down at plenty of points through the beginning of last season. Yes, 30 games isn't the biggest sample size in the world, but I think it's enough to say that Jaden Ivey could possibly be the biggest piece of the puzzle for the Pistons if they want to make a very deep playoff run next year. The Pistons battled the Knicks tooth and nail for 6 games in the playoffs without Ivey, and they were potentially a Jalen Brunson missed 3 away from pushing the series to 7 games. After the rest of the team was able to get a taste of playoff basketball, and with adding Ivy into the mix for now for a hopefully full season, the Pistons could be staring down the barrel of landing a top 3 seed right behind the Cavs and the Knicks, and they could surprise a lot in the basketball world come springtime. The Orlando Magic completed one of my favorite trades of the past 5 years or so when thinking of what the goal of the team in question was when they were trying to pull the trigger on the deal, and that was when they acquired Desmond Bane from the Memphis Grizzlies. The broader NBA world believes that the Magic giving up KCP, Cole Anthony, and I believe 4 first-round picks was an overpay, but I am not of this opinion. I think, again, with team fit in mind, their move for a guy like Bane was borderline perfect, and if you think it was an overpay, I need you to understand, more than anything, the Magic needed three-point shooting, preferably a movement shooter, a respectable playmaker, and a solid defender, and Bane checks all of those boxes without a doubt. And his inclusion in Jamal Mosley's game plan could realistically catapult the Magic up the standings in the East, especially if we can get a healthy season out of Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Jalen Suggs. On the back of their new Big Four, somewhat, of Paolo, Franz, Bane, and Suggs, the Magic will likely be one of the best young teams in the NBA on both ends of the floor. And I really want to emphasize that they need a healthy Suggs, because we've seen that at his best, he's an all-defensive second-team caliber guy that can also post a 60% true shooting percentage across a full 75-game season. Though he'll probably miss the beginning of the season also, the Magic will also have Mo Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr., and Goga Bitadze to make up one of the more underrated center rooms in the NBA. Are any of those guys particularly spectacular? No, but there's no noticeable drop off when any of the three are off the floor, and as the Magic, you can take that as a win. Moving back towards the main portion of the Magic's lineup, they could maybe expect an MVP type of breakout from Paolo Banchero next season if he can up his efficiency, and that's really the only obstacle. The guy put up 26 points, 7.5 rebounds, basically 5 assists on a pretty meh 55.1% true shooting, but if that mark goes up to around league average at 57 or 58%, the league is in trouble. What will assist Paolo and lead to him likely accomplishing this goal is the spacing that Bane brings as a career 41% three-point shooter. By default, Bane will help to lift the Magic's putrid 32% team three-point percentage from last year that was good for dead last in the NBA, and that's something to behold for a Magic team that has sorely lacked in three-point productivity since Banchero and Franz Wagner's introduction to the league. If things shake out right, the Magic will continue to act as a top 3 to 5 defense in the NBA while simultaneously becoming a more feared outside shooting team. This mix can certainly land them a guaranteed playoff berth, and their mix of defensive excellence and Banchero and Wagner's tough shot making after another summer of development can lead to the Magic sneakily going on an NBA Finals run. It's not too crazy to think that. Finally, we're going to talk about the Atlanta Hawks, and wow, the Atlanta Hawks. This is the team that I'm most excited for out of the three, mostly because this roster will finally give Trae Young a real chance to actually return to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since 2021. Atlanta was the beneficiary of 2 fantastic offseason moves, one of which being one of the best of the entire summer, that being the signing of Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I feel like mostly fans don't appreciate what he's done for the Timberwolves off their bench for the past couple of years, or they just don't realize how important he was to the team making back-to-back conference finals runs. His fingerprints were all over that. Along with the introduction of one of the best role players in the league, in Alexander Walker, at least that's what I believe of him to be, the Hawks also welcomed in Kristaps Porzingis, and if he's healthy, he might be one of the more perfect screening partners for Trae. Then again, it's really up for interpretation if he's going to give them a healthy campaign, because we saw him basically disappear from the Celtics lineup in the playoffs last year due to that mystery illness. But anyways, other than that, the Hawks also brought in one of the NBA's greatest three-point shooters of all time from a percentage standpoint, Luke Kennard, who holds the number 3 spot on the all-time three-point percentage list with a ridiculous 43.8% clip. Just absolutely crazy. In 8 seasons, mind you. This was a great get for the Hawks front office, and I'm really looking forward to the lineups with Trae, Luke Kennard, and Dyson Daniels. Speaking of, in a short callback to the Pistons segment, I talked about how Asar Thompson could have a sneaky Defensive Player of the Year candidacy. Well, Dyson Daniels is the guy who actually walked the walk in that regard. He placed second in Defensive Player of the Year voting at just 21 years old. Either way, Daniels settled for a measly Most Improved Player award victory after a generational defensive season. Along with his league-leading 3 steals and insane deflection numbers, Daniels also jumped nearly 10 points in scoring average, reaching 14.1 points, shooting 49.3% from the field. Daniels will of course have a comically large imprint on a potential finals run for the Hawks next year, but the player that I'm really focused on is Jalen Johnson, who basically had a season that would have granted him a no-brainer all-star selection about a decade ago. 18.9 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, almost 2 steals and a block, but unfortunately his season got cut short at the 36-game mark. You heard it here first, I'm expecting an all-star leap from Jalen Johnson next season. Actually, less of an expectation and more of a promise, because he really wowed me last year, and this season, I'll be expecting him to become the Jalen Williams to Trae Young's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Is Trae Shai? No, of course not, but just stick with the the thing for the sake of the analogy. The driving factor behind this pick, though, is not only the improvements that the Hawks made from an offseason standpoint, it's just the fact that Trae has been there and done it before, and he'll be hungry to show the Hawks front office that it's a good idea to continue to build around him. A lot of the talk of the offseason and for much of the trade deadline this past year was surrounding the Hawks' decision of whether they'd want to eventually trade Trae Young in the future or if they'd want to make a statement by surrounding him with more talent. And obviously they chose the latter, and I'm banking on Trae wishing to prove the Hawks higher ups right with that choice. Anyways, that'll be it for me today. Those are my 3 top picks to surprise a lot of people in the Eastern Conference and potentially have a Pacers-esque NBA Finals run. Let me know what you think below in the comments, like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.